The last episode for the LA Kings was a disaster, plain and simple. After a spectacular regular season that saw us take the division title and finish third in the league, we fell in the first round to the Winnipeg Jets. And that sets the stage for a very important offseason where yet again we really have to kind of leverage, like, okay, what is our future going to be? Who's going to be a part of it? I mean, a big part of that, of course, Genther and Savoy, Turcotte, one more season for all of them under contract, then some big money is going to have to be dished out. As a result, of course, we've talked about it. Carl Grundstrom, what's the deal with him? Are we going to be able to keep him? It's looking unlikely. And then ultimately Carter Hart, who, I'm sorry, he failed us. Again, we're on medium scoring right now. We're not on high scoring. He has no excuse. He really doesn't. The only factor right now, I believe, is the power plays are 3 out of 4, actually. So there really is no excuse for Carter Hart to be struggling as much as he did. Flat out. And are we going to trade him? I don't know. Am I going to at least explore the possibility of trading him? Potentially. And I mean, I think the big factor here, of course, with him, I do want to take a look at the save percentages for other goaltenders. And right now, I mean, Felix Sandstrom, who isn't even a backup goalie, did that. Connor Ingram, who is a backup goalie, did that in 2 appearances. Yaroslav Askarov having no trouble as an elite goaltender. Henrik Lundqvist at his age, not having any trouble. Dan Vladar as a backup goaltender. You see the point here. I think amongst every goalie that started, he might have the lowest save percentage. He nearly does. Vasi was way down there. Mackenzie Blackwood was way down there. And Joonas Korpisalo was way down there as well. So he wasn't the only big name to struggle. But at the end of the day, of course, you know, we're looking to not have that happen. And again, Connor Hellebuck wasn't even that great. But ultimately, he was good enough. He was better than Carter Hart. So there are a lot of questions that we need to answer. And heading into this, I don't exactly have the answers. The first step here, of course, is figuring out what to do with those on expiring contracts. And again, in goal, we're going to see quite a bit of turnover there. But Carl Grundstrom is the big question mark here. We have $34 million to spend. He is looking for $10 million. And no matter pretty much what way I adjust that, it's going to cost a lot. So with Grundstrom, you are talking about, again, $8.5 million per season. Which, again, for the series that we're doing here, we do have, the no movement clause, the no trade clause, and everything factoring in to what we do. And that amount of money would spin for a no movement clause. Now, here's the issue. We have to stay loyal for half the deal. So, essentially, we would be staying loyal for either 2 to 3 years, a minimum, at $8.5 million, and then we'd be spinning for the back half of that contract. So, yeah, that's the issue, is no matter what, even if I wanted to sign Carl Grundstrom right now, we'd have to commit to him for at least 2 to 3 years. And that's a major risk. Now, we do have $34 million in space, right? And that's fantastic. But looking ahead to the following offseason in 2026-2027, I mean, Zykov will be up at that point. But then, of course, again, it's Turcotte, Savoy, Genther, and how much money is going to have to be thrown their way to make this work. I just don't know if we can keep Carl Grundstrom. And obviously now the issue is we're not going to be able to get full value back for him. So it's a tough spot to be in. The thing is, of course, we also have Kapari and Anderson Dolan as RFAs. Anze Kopitar, I completely, plan on holding on to him. That's not going to be surprising to anybody. So it just sucks that he got hurt when he did and completely missed this postseason. And the thought is there, some people have suggested try to trade Drew Doughty. Not a bad idea. I do have some freedom in terms of trying to trade him. His real life deal, essentially, it's now, having to trade him to one of the top 7 teams in the NHL, because in real life he gets to pick the 7 teams he'd be willing to go to. So we'd be looking at Pittsburgh, Washington, New Jersey, Minnesota, Colorado, Vancouver, and Dallas were the other top 8 teams alongside us. Again, we finished in 3rd place. So there's a lot of decisions to make here. Again, $34 million to work with. The UFAs might be who I want to focus on, though, because with the RFAs, we have a bit more maneuverability. Rasmus Kupari is looking for a 5-year deal. That's not too shabby. Again, though, he is on an RFA deal, easy for me to say. So, thankfully, the no movement, no trades doesn't affect him, doesn't affect Anderson Dolan. So, we're going to want to sign them for as long as possible because we could then move them. So, I think that's what we're going to do first, is because, again, even if we sign them now and there's a little bit of trouble money-wise, I would have the freedom to move them, and I have a feeling we'd get a little bit more back through just having the ability to trade them rather than through an offer sheet. So it would have to be 6x6 for Kupari, which is a pretty damn good deal for someone in our top 6. I'm willing to sign him to that if he's willing to take it. And then Jarrett Anderson Dolan is next, and I'd look to bump that up to a 4-year deal. Again, I can only move the years down by 1 or up by 1 based on his asking price to not be able to cheese the contracts and take advantage of it. So Anderson Dolan will be down to 4,975, and if he accepts that, that again would be a phenomenal deal. Jake Sanderson, we'll try to sort this one out next. I'm going to have it be a 2-year deal because that way he would still be an RFA, which would be a good bit of business for us. This would be at 3,625, which would also be a pretty good contract for us. From there, though, Matt Luff is on the way out. He doesn't want to come back. We're going to have to let go of him. Unfortunately, he wants to test free agency, so we're going to see changes to the 4th line this season. Wade Allison's going to be on the way out. I'm not worried about Altai Barmakian. Fogamo I might keep, though. Sam Fogamo I think I want to keep. Potentially, actually, let me look at him again. Here's the problem, he's a top 6 specialist. He's just never going to fit in with this team. The shot isn't that good. It's just he's a pure playmaker. And I just don't see how he's really going to fit in with this team. But considering he's looking for very little, makes sense to bring him back on a 1-year deal. It really does. And that way, hey, he's at least a depth option. Nick Waugh is going to go. Matt Roy is going to go. Marcus Phillips, I don't know yet. There's a couple of players where I just don't know. So those will be the initial offers. We'll see what happens. We'll see how much money is left over when it comes to Carl Grundstrom. But yeah, brutal loss. And Anze Kopitar is back the day after we're bounced. Jarrett Anderson Dolan has re-signed. Rasmus Kupari, Jake Sanderson, and Samuel Fogamo all re-signed, which is great news, all taking those cheaper deals. So we look at the expiring contracts now. We start off with Grundstrom, and again, we have $21 million to work with, nearly 22. But what happens afterwards? Knowing that for Grundstrom, we'd have to stay committed for a decent amount of time. It's just, what do we do with those top 3? Because in goal, Koskinen's gone. That backfired. Villalta's going to go. We don't really need him. Manderville will be signed. Lindholm, decent shot. I'm just going to drop him as well at this point. For the defenseman, again, Roy's gone. Marcus Phillips, I can bring him back. Taking a look here. He might not be that bad of an option to have as a depth call. You know what? Let's give him a chance. We'll give him a 1-year deal. Patrick, obviously going to be coming back. Get him on a 2-year deal. That way he'd still be an RFA. And Jordan Spence, I'm good with keeping him as well. We'll bump that up to 2 years. Bankston will be signed to his ELC. Matt Roy, it's time for you to go. You didn't fill in all that well for us this year. And, you're looking for a dirt cheap deal, but it didn't pan out. So that leaves us with the forwards. Actually, no, we'll go to the wingers first. So again, Luff is gone. Allison's gone. Altai Barmakian's gone. Grundstrom, I don't know yet. Bulat Shafagulin. What do we want to do with Bulat here? Again, kind of that offensive replacement. I'm going to keep him as well. Although you could argue he'd be taking a spot away from Fogamo, so it's kind of tough. But if he's willing to re-sign for that, I'm willing to keep him. Sodergran, no. We're going to drop him. He might get a little bit better, but he's not going to be good enough. Latipov, we're going to drop. And Plekhanov, we're going to drop. And that leaves our centers where, again, Roy is going to go. Hate to say it, but Nick Wong's going to go. It's going to upset at least one of you tremendously. So Anze Kopitar, I want to keep our captain. For obvious reasons, I don't want Anze to go anywhere. So we are going to attempt to keep him. He only wants a 1-year deal. And, I mean, we would be spinning for a no-trade clause that would decide whether or not I'm allowed to get rid of him this season. Because he's making over 2.5. So, the first step here, oh boy, is to spin the wheel. And it is going to be no trade clause or free. Those are the options. Let's figure out how it's going to go down. Is Anze Kopitar getting a no trade clause if we sign him? Yes, he is. Damn it. Now, the second question is how many teams are going to be on that list. And it's 3 to 25 teams. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Let's spin the wheel one more time. How many teams on Anze Kopitar's no trade clause if we were to do it? Just 6. Yeah, we're going to sign into that. So basically what this means for Kopitar, if he signs this deal, is I cannot trade him to the bottom 6 teams. So that is the deal there. I'm certainly willing to sign him to that and, of course, try to keep him. And if we somehow suck next year, then so be it. But yeah, 4-1-2-5. If he's willing to accept that, that would be great. And then Tyler Madden, also looking for a 1-year deal. Again, it would be a similar situation as far as the no trade clause for him. A 2-year deal would be nice. Yeah, a 2-year deal would be nice. So let's see what we have here. So 4.2. Actually, no, it would be adjusted to be 4.25 million. Adjust that 3.775. Decent deal for a third liner. So I'm willing to sign him to that as well. So then the question is, how long does that no trade clause last for? No years, 1 year, or 2 years? Let's spin the wheel and find out, shall we? So Tyler Madden, is he going to have a no trade clause? No, he is not. Perfect. Fantastic. Something goes our way for once. So we are free and clear to hopefully sign Mr. Madden to that contract, and I can trade him if I want to, which is, again, tremendous news for everybody involved. So let's sim another couple of days, see what we're dealing with here. Kopitar is back. Phillips signed. Spence, Shafagulin, and Madden, everyone's signing the cheap deals. Fantastic. Thank God for that. So really, that just leaves the question of Carl Grundstrom. That's what it comes down to, is Carl Grundstrom. Everybody else here, we're going to move on from, of course, with the exception of the prospects that need to be signed. But, yeah, this is an interesting call. Knowing that we'd have to commit to Carl Grundstrom paying a second liner $8 million when it's likely that Turcotte, Savoy, and Genther are all going to command over $10 million. I just think Carl Grundstrom's on the out, he's on the outs looking in. So what we're going to do is head to the draft, and we're going to see what we can do. But again, unfortunately, we might just have to let him go. I just cannot help but think that our big three, they're going to be looking for big-time deals, obviously. And I think, if we sign Grundstrom to this contract, we're going to regret it. 100%, I think we're going to regret it. So we'll see how the playoffs pan out. Of course, we'll take a look at how everything goes down, the awards, and who ultimately wins the Stanley Cup. And the answer to that question happens to be the Minnesota Wild. The Syracuse Crunch win the Calder Cup, but the Minnesota Wild take home the Stanley Cup this season, as they were able to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning in 5. Winnipeg made it all the way to the conference final, outlasting Vancouver in 7 games in the second round. So Taking a look here at the Wild and their squad. Kaprizov, Galchenyuk, Fiala, Hala, Sokolov, Donato. Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised with that offense. Ryan Gropp was up there, huh? Kalen Addison, Brendan Goulet, Spurgeon, Schneider, Johansson, and Nikita Zaitsev, the goaltender. Ben Bishop. Good old Ben Bishop, huh? Not bad. Spent one season with the Islanders down to a backup level, but Ben Bishop helps the Wild win a Stanley Cup. The awards. Again, there you see Winnipeg were the defending champions. That doesn't surprise me, but we still really needed to win. Connor McDavid wins the Art Ross and the Hart. John Carlson wins another Norris. Crosby the Lady Byng. The Calder to, I believe it was Adam Fantilli. Conn Smythe to Kaprizov. Blackwood won the Vezina, and it was terrible in the playoffs. Masterton there. Jack Adams to Washington. Barkov wins the Selke. McDavid the Rocket Richard. Or the Rocket Richard and the Ted Lindsay. Down in the AHL, Dylan Holloway put up the most points. Sean Corrali was league MVP. Ryan O'Reilly, not that one, scored the most goals. Top rookie was a dude named Drury. Vukasevic was top goal, or top defenseman. Top goaltender was Makiniemi. MVP of the playoffs, Latvia's own Zemgus Girgensons. So, another season comes to a close. We look ahead to the draft. We've already made some big moves in terms of re-signing. There we get the results. We have the 9th overall pick thanks to Ottawa. Would have been nice to perhaps win the lottery, but no. San Jose is able to do that. Of course, we do have some picks that we're going to have to move as well, including the fact that we failed one of our goals for the season, and that punishment awaits us. Retired players. Jonathan Taves, Patrice Bergeron, Zach Parise, Brad Marchand, and more. Some big names calling it a career at the completion of this season. Didn't mean to go to goaltenders, but here we are. Marc-Andre Fleury, Pekka Rinne, Jonathan Quick, and more. And for defensemen, Letang, Subban, Vlasic, Eric Johnson leading the way. Looks like we have no new staff members. Interview-wise, I'm good, and we'll see what happens. Perhaps should have edited the trade block, but for now, let's see what happens. We go to another draft. Oh boy, let's see what we have here. First and foremost, the trade finder. The draft pick situation. We have 3 first-rounders. We're not allowed to make all 3. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to move a 3rd-round pick as well, which kind of sucks. I'm also going to have to move a 4th-round pick. We have quite a few picks to move, is what I'm gathering here. So for goaltenders, I'm just intrigued. What is the going rate for one Carter Hart? Nick Leddy or Voracek? Obviously, neither's worth it. Carter stays, at least for now. Rafalski, I really don't want to cheese his value, but let's be honest. We know he's not worth Cam Fowler. We know he's not worth Antoine Morand. I mean, pretty much we would just be robbing a team blind of a draft pick, and I'm just not cool with doing it. That's not what this series is about. Matt Villalta, though, if I could get something for him, I'll take it because he's gone anyway. 6th and a 7th next year as well, so I definitely don't have to even consider that as trading up for this year. So Matt Villalta, see you later. You're on the way out. Lindholm, you were decent, but we're going to be letting go of you. Can I get anything for Koskinen's rights? The answer is yes. Picks next year, 6th and a 7th from Philadelphia. Perfect. We'll at least get something back for him. Then again, Twilmainen and Manderville are likely to be the AHL combo next season, so we are going to need a backup goaltender. Defensively, just to find out for sure, is there anybody interested in Drew Doughty? The answer is yes. Wow. Washington, were you on the list? Washington was 2nd in the NHL. We can move Drew Doughty for a 1st-round pick next year. Nothing's stopping me. The no movement clause is up. 7-team trade list, the top of the standings. Washington was in 2nd. There is nothing stopping me from trading Drew Doughty to the Washington Capitals. If they can accept the deal, we're good to go, and maybe, just maybe, that's our way of keeping Carl Grundstrom. Again, Doughty's on the decline. He hasn't been great. And to be able to free up that little bit of extra money is gigantic. Drew, I'm sorry. I try to keep players around for as long as I can. It's done. Drew Doughty sent to the Washington Capitals for a first-round pick. A huge move has been made, but we would have been stupid to not take that. Obviously, some people on the team are pissed, but that was a necessary move. No doubt about it. San Jose getting ready to make their pick as we take a look here. Zykov is top 6. I would expect Mo Marsh to be stepping up, but that does leave room potentially to make a move for somebody else. Now, I want to see if I can get anything from Mikey Anderson. He's just not going to make this lineup. A third and a fourth, third and a fourth, third and a sixth, a third and some random dude. Are there 2 picks next year? That way I don't have to have the debate of like, oh, was it technically trading for a pick this year? Samson goes to San Jose. Nobody ahead of us in the draft is interested in trading their pick, so we are kind of limited with what we can do here. But that is a huge move to be able to move on from Drew Doughty. And again, I still want to try to trade Mikey Anderson here. Let's see what we can get. A third and a fourth, third and a fifth. I don't know. Are people really going to... You know what? I'm just going to get the best trade I can here. So it's going to be a third and a fourth. It's going to be a third rounder probably next year. What's the best team to send him to? Let's send him out to Tampa. Get that 4th round pick this year, a 3rd round pick next year. So Mikey Anderson is on the way out as well. Just someone who's never going to make the NHL lineup. We might as well get something for his trade value. He could be worth it to them. Marcus Phillips, if I can trade you, I would be wise to do so, but I cannot. So I think that about does it for the defenseman that we're going to be able to move here. We still have 2 dudes who we just know nothing about. On that right-hand side, Savoy, Madden, Van Katterson, still looking okay. No prospects that I really want to trade. If I can get something from Matt Luff, I should. And the answer is yes. We already know he doesn't want to re-sign. So to play it safe, we'll get a 7th round pick next year from Columbus. Matt Luff, thank you very much for your time here. You said you wanted to be able to try and test free agency. Well, there is your opportunity. And actually, let's test to see if there's a market for Matt Roy. There is not. So he'll be dropped to the free agent list outright. So let me go back to this right-hand side. Can I get anything for Altai Barmakian? Might as well try to move anybody here that I can. That at least, is a fair argument. Like, moving Mestra is just like, no, we know he's terrible. I don't want to rob the AI of picks in that way. That left-hand side, Grundstrom's value is obviously down. We do have the ability, the freedom, to trade Alex Iafallo if we wanted to. Now, that would be another huge miss for the team. Nobody's interested, so we'll be keeping Iafallo on roster. Wagner's fine for now. I think at this point we have to re-sign Grundstrom. I do want to see if I can get something for Fogamo. The answer is no. Latipov I'm not going to move, so we're good to go. But yeah, with Grundstrom's value being that low, it makes sense to re-sign him, and then, potentially we will have to move him out. But considering what we could have gotten, compared to what we're being offered now, I'm not giving up on him, at least not yet. So I think Carl Grundstrom for 2 to 3 years is going to be a member of the Kings, and we'll work things around if we have to. So that leaves us with the centers. Turcotte, Kupari, Anderson, Dolan, still locked in. Of course, Kupari will be moved back over to the wing now that Kopitar is back. And of course, Curry is now on the roster as well. Can we move Anders Lee? No, we can't. There is a chance I'm going to buy him out this offseason because, yeah, that's just not... It's not a good deal for us at this point, but of course we had to move him because of the Colton Parayko result with that pull. So Arizona acquires Tikkanen, and I think that sets us up. Again, Doughty is gone. A couple other pieces are gone. Sets the stage for what we might be able to do here. So first and foremost, I mean, again, we have the number 9 pick. I think the smart move is to probably trade up again. Using those 2 picks, have that be our 1 trade up. So I'm going to talk to the New York Rangers and see if we do have the ability to trade up here. Let's see what we got. So we have the 23rd pick, from Colorado. And, I mean, we're going to have to use our own pick as well. If that goes through, I'm good with it. Technically, I might be missing out on value, but I'm okay with that. Yeah, there we go. So we'll trade 2 first-round picks to move up. So we have the 9th and 10th pick in this draft. From there, though, I am going to have to package some picks together to technically trade down. So this pick has got to go, this one's got to go, this one's got to go. And let's see what else. So technically it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 with that first 5th rounder. That's what we're going to keep. So the 6th and the 7ths have to go. We're going to trade down towards next year's draft. So Ottawa, for example, interested in all of these picks. Like a 2nd rounder next year would be fantastic. Technically probably missing out on value there. I don't really care. It's fine by me. Awesome. So thank you very much, Ottawa. Get an extra 2nd for next year's draft. So against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So all of these extra picks have got to go. And we'll try to pick a selection up from Philly if they're willing to deal. Can we get a 4th rounder from them next year? The answer is no. So we'll look to get a 5th rounder instead. And perfect. Okay, so we're good to go. Drew Doughty's off roster. We have our 7 picks lined up for this draft. 2 of them back-to-back at the start. Carter Hart still going to be on this team. The defense, there is room for a top option. I mean, obviously there are some players here who are in the mix as well, but we'll see what free agency happens to bring. And then again, Carl Grundstrom is likely to be back. As well, of course, Anze Kopitar still here. So let's do this. Let's see who we end up with in this draft. The 9th overall selection and the 10th overall selection. Who are we looking at here? There is 1 defenseman in the mix, so obviously he's got to be a part of this. And that's Daniel Mercier of the St. John Sea Dogs. 6'4", 213, did well in terms of putting up points. But from there, who do we go for? There's Walter Betts. Pretty good point total, 6'2", 18 years old, 74 points for Owen Sound. Brandon Girard, a few more points than that, also a bigger player. Matthias Bang. Regardless, not looking that great, but obviously the numbers in these leagues are typically lower. And then there's a 17-year-old player in Alvin Kleimer and an 18-year-old player in Owen Kristanovich. So between these 2, I am very interested to see probably which one I'm going to pick here, because 91 points for Kleimer. Minus player takes a ton of shots. Owen Kristanovich with the 92 points. So it is either Kristanovich or Kleimer. And I can't help but think Owen Kristanovich. But the penalty minutes are a major concern. But he looks to be a little bit more solid in a 5-on-5 game. So it's going to be one of these 2. I just don't know who. Because, again, we don't have those extra stats on them. So it's pure guesswork at this point. It's going to be Alvin Kleimer or Owen Kristanovich. Kristanovich again, more penalty minutes. I think it's got to be Kleimer. Similar point total, a year younger. Alvin Kleimer from the Kelowna Rockets. The right wing is going to be our first pick. The next pick after that will be the defenseman and Daniel Mercier from the St. John Sea Dogs. So we have a right wing, we have a defenseman. In this draft, we go to the 65th pick. We'll see who else is available here, as we have a couple of defensemen. Tyson Wilford, 18 years old, not a big point producer. Nick Corson, also of the Kelowna Rockets, 20 years old though. But that high up in the draft, he could be decent. An 18-year-old Maximilian Omboul. Not much of a point total there. The 20-year-old, the overager is an interesting one there. He really is. Omboul has fallen in the Central Scouting rankings, but Wilford's on the rise. And then there's Corson. Or we take our second right wing of the draft, which Bickle's looking rough, which would leave us with Amrit Cowan. Decent point total. Charlie Standard, the 18-year-old, and another overager in Norm Morris. Interesting. So I think it comes down Defenseman, I'm intrigued by Corson. I'm also intrigued by Norm Morris, but of course you'd expect those higher point totals. Charlie Standard, looks like he could be decent. And then Cowan, also at 18 years old, a bit bigger from the Shawinigan. Not a young lady from Shawinigan, a young man from Shawinigan. I think I'm going to go for the American here in Standard, although he's fallen recently too in Central Scouting. That's a little bit concerning. Norris has dipped. Bickle has actually gone up, which is pretty nice. It's got to be Wilford or Bickle. Or perhaps Cowan. It's got to be Cowan. Yeah, I was more impressed by Cowan's numbers. The fact he's climbing in the rankings, it's a promising sign. Amrit Cowan of the Shawinigan Cataracts will be the next option. Not the Cataracts. You know what? I gotta be honest. I'm tired enough. It's late enough. I don't really care how to say their name correctly. We have 2 wingers and a defenseman thus far. We skip ahead to pick number 73 here later on in the 3rd round. Let's see who is available. So no goaltender still. Jaden Ferraro, who we apparently have some information on. Not looking that good. So I think we'll rule him out. You have Jonathan McNabb, 18-year-old defenseman. We have Per Sonnenberg, or Par Sonnenberg, 18-year-old big defenseman there out of Sweden. Artem Habibulin, the overager. Daryl Maxwell, Swiss-born. Sven Grossman, or Par Hoagland. Hoagland's an interesting one at 17, but obviously here we're looking for a center or a defenseman. And I think for another defenseman, comes down to McNabb, Sonnenberg, or Maxwell. Maxwell is the smallest of the bunch. And interestingly enough, has gone up in terms of Central Scouting. There's the Slovenian and Jonathan McNabb, though, which, in terms of who to pick here, I think it's gotta be the Slovenian. In real life, imagine the moment. Anze Kopitar comes to the stage and announces that the Kings have selected one of his fellow countrymen, and Johnny McNabb. We're doing it. Picture it in your head, because that's the only place you can picture it. But Jonathan McNabb is going to be the pick for that reason alone. So we're looking for a center, looking for a goalie, and we have a free pick down the stretch here of this draft. So let's see who else we have here. We do have a goalie, and we have 2 centers. There's also Harrison Champion, which is a great name. Yuri Semin, but again, right now we're pretty much locked into either drafting Jesper Bengston, who is super short for a goaltender. So it comes down to Thomas Lilja or the center, Matthias Ekman-Larsson. And it's going to be Ekman-Larsson. He's younger, 6'3", could ultimately be a grinder. He has fallen in the Central Scouting rankings, but we're going to take the risk with the center in Ekman-Larsson. So it's looking now at a goaltender. And of course, our free pick. We do get a trade offer. We're done with trading for this draft. So let's see who we have here. We do have a goaltender, or we use our free pick. So it is Gaspard Leroy. I'm going to pass, which means if there's not a goaltender in that next selection, we take the highest rated goalie available. So right now we're looking at our free pick. It's either Jalen Arnott, Jacob Dubilowicz, Max Furchner, Pedro Bouwmeester, Vincent Pelletier at 17, or Nick Hendricks, the defenseman. I think Vinny Pelletier, obviously just for the fact that he's the youngest guy of the group, is interesting enough. Jalen Arnott, could say son of Jason. Decent point total there. Dubilowicz at 19 was also solid. Furchner didn't have much going for him. Bouwmeester, Pelletier, or Hendricks. It's down to Pelletier or Arnott. And we are going to be going, both have fallen down the list here, but Hendricks is a big mover up the rankings, which is great news. We're going to take the defenseman, especially after moving Drew Doughty, and the fact that we might have to move some defensemen coming up anyway. Nick Hendricks is the guy. Let's take him, and then we have to hope that there is at least not a goalie who is kind of horrifically undersized for today's NHL. It's going to be Tremblay. What's he looking like? 6'3", 213, but he's 20 years old on the Cape Breton Eagles. But Michel Tremblay is the selection. So, Michelle, welcome aboard. That does it for this draft. Obviously, now I know we don't get that immediate feedback, and I know that bothers some people in terms of how good these picks are. But again, every other series we know. So I kind of like having that question mark. But we'll see how good Clymer and Mercier ultimately are. The big news here, Drew Doughty's gone. I mean, that is the biggest news. Out of nowhere, again, we explore potentially trading Carter Hart. That doesn't make sense. But Doughty is gone. I cannot believe somehow, someway Washington worked. That opens up the opportunity for us to, hold on to Carl Grundstrom. And of course, we have some other guys that will be signing up. There are still some moves that we're going to be making. But let's see again one more time what this contract would be for Carl Grundstrom. And, a 6-year deal wouldn't be that bad. It might be more difficult to trade. So a 5-year deal at 8,675, 309. That drops it down to 7,375. So that's obviously going to be a tad bit more. And this would be around 7.5 for 6 years. But I think 4 more years potentially of Grundstrom. We want it to be an even number. And it makes sense for 4 years for us because, again, we have to stay loyal for at least half the contract if it's a no-movement clause. So this guarantees that we only have to stay loyal for 2 years if we sign him to it. So this is going to be interesting. So let's take a look. Well, actually, we already know it would be a 2-year deal or a 2-year no-movement clause, and then we'd have to spin for the no trades from there, potentially. Honestly, if he signs this, it's worth it. Again, 7,375. Carl Grundstrom, 2 years on that deal. If he signs that contract, we're golden. So what we have to figure out right now, again, it would be a 2-year no movement clause. I also, again, forgot to trade the goddamn pick because I got so caught up in it. So I will do that. Once free agency begins, we'll surrender a pick heading into next year's draft. I always forget to do that. But Carl Grundstrom. So it would be 2 out of 4 years on a no-movement clause, but does he have a no-trade clause added to it? So what we'd be looking at here is a 0, a 1, or a 2. So we go back to this wheel here. If it lands on 0, years 3 and 4, complete freedom. If it lands on a 1, year 3, there's a no-trade clause. If it lands on 2, there's a no-trade clause for the back half of the contract. Make sense? Good. We're hoping for a 0. A 2 would be a bit of a disaster. Let's go. Yes, thank you. Nice to get a little bit of luck. So Carl Grundstrom, a 2-year no-movement clause. At the end of that 2 years, I have freedom to do whatever the hell I want in terms of trading him, which is great news for us. So if he accepts that contract, we're golden. Let's do it. Because of the Drew Doughty move, makes all the sense in the world to send Grundstrom a contract and commit to at least 2 years of him being on this roster. So let's find out. Our head coach's deal is up. We have some scouts up as well. Here we go. Carl Grundstrom is back on the team. So again, at least 2 more years of Grundstrom, years 3 and 4 of that contract, complete freedom to trade him wherever I want if we need the cap space. So thank you very much, Washington, for taking Drew Doughty and allowing me to do that. I am forever appreciative. We look at the goaltenders. Manderville needs to sign his ELC, former 5th-round pick of a goalie. Bring him on. That ELC. Lindholm was a free agent signing. Ultimately, he just didn't pan out. Kind of a shame, but he's going to be gone. And then Tremblay could technically be signed as our 5th goalie. And you know what? I think I'm good with that. I think I'm good with having him as that 5th option. Let's do it. Let's sign him to his ELC out of the gates. Might have a decent overall for the fact he was looking for a max contract, which means we're going to be looking for a backup for Carter Hart in free agency. But aside from that, we are good to go. Of course, Rafalski's never going to be signed. For our defense, for now, we still look good. Matt Roy, I thank you for your service. But ultimately, it is time for you to go. A pretty lackluster showing in your 20 games this season in that depth role seals your fate. Bankston is certainly going to be signed. He was a first-round pick of ours in 2023, medium top 6. It's pretty rough, but we're still going to sign him. So now we know how that first-round pick went back in the day. And then, of course, we have Hendricks, McNabb, and Mercier. Of course, McNabb could be signed, but we're going to hold off. Mercier at minor league top 6, so not quite NHL ready. Unfortunately, we'll hold off on signing any of those 3. On the wings, Allison going to be gone. Altai Barmakian going to be gone. Unfortunately for McLeod and Mestra, again, the overalls just aren't high enough. We're going to drop both of them. On the left-hand side, Pau is certainly going to be signed. Another first-round pick in 2023. A little bit better. Kip Pau of the Red Deer Rebels gets his first contract. Sodergren, as we talked about, we're going to drop him. Latipov, he's just never going to make it, so we're going to drop him as well. Plekhanov, also gone. Mikkola, still under contract. Ugh, we had to pick him back up in a deal. It makes no sense to really buy him out, does it? No, I mean, he can just be a depth option. And that way we still have buyout options open. Skinner, never going to be signed. So the big question here is going to be Anders Lee and whether or not we buy him out. What would the buyout be for Lee? 3.5? No, 2.33 for 2 years. Or 1 more year at $7 million. Which, to be honest, I think we could actually deal with. Now, Nick Roy is going to be dropped. But yeah, I think 1 more year of Anders Lee, just as a depth forward, is something worth doing. We might as well keep him. CU also going to be dropped. So down to 34 deals. Let's sim forward a day. I don't think we had any contracts aside from Manderville, right? Manderville signs, Tremblay signs, Pau, Bankston as well. Okay, so I think we're good. I think we'll keep Anders Lee for 1 more season. I'd rather have him 1 year, $7 million, while we still have $22 million in space, rather than having to pay him that little bit extra. Because again, next year is dangerous. Turcotte, a couple of the big contracts that are up. Of course, Kopitar will be off the books. Lee will be off the books. It's going to be a good amount of money freed up there. But I do think the move of, signing Carl Grundstrom, very good term. His asking price came down, which is, again, gigantic news for us. Despite the fact we lost Drew Doughty, our forward core is still looking really, really good. Now, in terms of coaching staff, I'm just going to let everybody go to free agency, and we're going to fill out this roster as best we can, or the coaching staff and the roster as best we can. And if that dude is still our best option, then so be it. Before I forget, let's go to proposed trade. Again, we failed 1 challenge for the season last year, which means we have to give up a 3rd round pick. We'll also go down and grab our 7th. Jesus Christ, we have a lot of picks next year. We'll go down and grab our 7th. And we got quite a few teams who are listed as a rebuilder. But I'm going to say Montreal, because why not help out the Habs? We'll make that switch there. They get a free 3rd round pick. That is my punishment for not making it to the 2nd round of the playoffs. So we still have plenty of cap space. Again, we need a backup goaltender. And we do have some money to play with here, if need be. Whew. Okay, forward-wise, I mean, there are some decent names out there. I don't know if we're going to go for any of them, right? Defensively, though, I mean, I don't know if I want to pay Provorov $12 million a season. I don't think he's worth that. I'd love to get someone of Provorov's caliber. But there could be the chance of picking up somebody in the top 4 mix here, but our defense might honestly be set. And then when it comes to the goaltending, I mean, there are some options there. I mean, hell, you could sit there and talk about, like, oh, is anybody here worth signing and then flip Carter Hart? That is potentially an option. I want to talk about freeing up more money, but right now, I mean, the backup goaltenders, Gibson, Larson, LaFontaine, Korpisalo, Tarasov, Makiniemi, who was the AHL goalie of the year last year. I mean, there were quite a few guys in the backup category. Henrik Lundqvist is there. Frederick Anderson, Georgiev. So we do have quite a few good options Just to double check here, though, in terms of unsigned or undrafted options, there is Caden Brown, other goalie James Parker. Not too bad. None of these guys are AHL starters, so the potentials might be good, but there's no way to tell, of course, right now what the overall is and whether or not any of them are worth it. So it's definitely worth going for just a standard backup. For the defense, there's only one dude, Charlie Combs. However, he's 20 years old and isn't listed as an AHL level defenseman, so I don't think he's worth it. And that brings us, actually, here, let me check here. It's rough. And then for the forwards, there is other forward in Jamie Schremp. 6'5" monster on skates. But again, I think right now it's worth taking a look at what this team needs. So one more look at the squad. We'll call things an episode from here. Very eventful day for the LA Kings yet again. So again, to take a look here at the forwards. Again. Our top six is basically set. I mean, we technically have room for one more top six forward. However, if Anderson, Dolan, Iafallo, or Van Kadashin were to step up, it would be a problem. Not to mention Anze Kopitar's there. And I don't think we're going to run Anze as a fourth liner, even though he's listed as a fourth liner. And Tyler Madden's there. So if we look at this team right now, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I mean, we have a spot for one dude. And maybe it's Fogamo, maybe it's Curry, maybe it's Powell or Vandenbush, who isn't even signed. But I mean, the fourth line might actually end up being Wagner, Kopitar, and somebody else that we can pick up. Third liner of Madden, Van Kadashin, Iafallo, and Anderson Dolan, unless one of them goes up to a second line option. Otherwise, we'll pick who we think is the best to be on that second line with Grundstrom and Kupari. So I don't really think right now it's worth the risk of signing a veteran forward. At least until we see what kind of player development we're getting, because if we sign somebody and it's a big enough contract and someone develops, guess what? We have to boot the guy that developed, and that's not a good way to go. So I don't think we're going to sign any forwards. Defensemen, I think it's a huge risk too. I think it's a huge risk. I know we need another top four defenseman, but Zykov, Anisimov, they could be there, and Mo Marsh could end up being a top six defenseman. So again, if we were to sign somebody, we'd have to commit to getting rid of Zykov, which some people are on board with. He's still on a pretty good contract, though, so it's kind of a tough call. I don't know how active we're going to be in free agency, and then again, goaltending-wise, we obviously need a backup. So I'll stop it here still. Leave it up to you guys. Let you guys be able to voice your opinion on what you think we should do in free agency. Now you've seen some of the top options. But again, a very eventful draft day for us. We have 3 first-round picks heading into next year. It's another very big season for us, as you know, time will tell how this is going to go down. But Drew Doughty is gone. I mean, it continues to be the beginning of a new era here for the LA Kings. Right now, Carl Grundstrom, shockingly, is going to be a part of that future. So again, for now, we are done here. I thank you very much for watching. Don't worry, I won't forget the coaching staff, I promise. Again, you know the deal. Support the video, support the channel, beyond, of course, just watching. And I do thank you for your more than valuable time. Check out everything in the description if you haven't already done so. And, of course, a shout-out to those on Patreon. And to those patrons, those Tier 3 patrons over on Patreon, there was a new franchise mode series just for you over on patreon.com/Toogie24. I love you all. I will see you in the next one. Until then, have a good one. Stay safe. Catch you next time.